Good evening, Wednesday, December 15th, 2021, here in Sarasota, Florida. It is 10 o'clock. Not the best time to try to capture a recording, especially after a very long day. So I can pretty much guarantee that this one is going to be a lot shorter than the first two. If you're just joining me for the first time in this series or for the first time on my YouTube channel, you have stumbled on video 3 of 28 in a series called Giving Myself Voice. As a little housekeeping note, you will see in the description that in each video, there will be a link to the video most previous to it. And then the next day, when the next one is captured, that link will be added as the video that flows, that this one that you're watching will flow into. This is being very, very much done in the now moment. The impetus, the inspiration, the ignition, the fuel that is serving as the core of this particular series is an experience that I had as part of a very, relatively small number, about 150, 160 of us were co-creating a new class with a guy named Mark Attwood. And it was an online marketing class that I joined on August 1st. 3 weeks in, I was completely derailed in my life in pretty unprecedented ways and knocked to the floor in a way that I hadn't been knocked to the floor in the 11 years since my own personal spiritual awakening. It has been a profound experience, and it has taken every bit of 4 months to sort of analyze it and sort through it and just be with it was a mini dark night of the soul. It really was. And I am now emerging with tremendous clarity. And actually, I felt a lot of these things. And that is why the derailment happened. But then as what always happens with me, I denied myself a voice. And when I tried to give voice, it was ignored, literally ignored. And then I question and the self-doubt, and I start to that self-doubt is a killer. And so then I start negating everything that I was feeling, even though I have an incredibly good relationship with my higher self, with the greater aspects of myself, with my intuition, with my insight, with the wisdom that's within me, and with how strongly I've been living my path now for over 9 years. So I felt absolutely compelled to put this into a series and to be very open and honest about my experience in this class. Now, before I start going into when things went awry, because I personally believe that the experience was very much a microcosm of the macrocosm of the world situation, and therefore lots and lots of high-level lessons are there to be learned. And like I said, this is first and foremost for me, my individual processing, me sharing lessons and things that I experienced, interpreted, learned, and if it can help or serve anybody else during these challenging, confusing times, that is always unbelievably the icing on the cake, the cherry on top. I'm always first and foremost speaking to myself, because I have found I am absolutely my best teacher. And this was one hell of a series of lessons. And it just seems too valuable to not share it. So I wanted to today just kind of touch upon, why did I join the course? Why did I join the course? Now, I shared yesterday that the decision was definitely more impulsive than a rational thinking and listing of pros and cons, because simply we had a time frame. He announced it on July 28th or July 29th, and the damn thing started on August 1st. And I was a paying customer. I paid $499 for this course. And that is not a small amount of money in my world. So, you know, I slept on it. I waited till as long as possible before deciding to take it, but it was very much intuitive based. Here is, today I'm just going to get into the reasons why, and it's relatively short, so this video should be a little bit shorter. Here's the primary reason. The primary reason was, I know, and there are some secondary reasons that aren't too far down the list, but the primary reason directly relates to and was shared in episode 23 of my podcast titled To the M&Ms. I believe the episode was captured in, I think it was April. Somewhere. It was months before we would know that Mark was going to announce this course. It was months beforehand. Now, I had been following him. Like I said yesterday, I hadn't watched TV, had no knowledge of like anything about anything until this pandemic started, and then was obtaining my information from individuals from all over the globe, spanning all sorts of perspectives. It's actually been pretty cool, if not challenging, to decipher who's actually telling the truth and who's actually living what they're talking about. But when you stumble upon ones that feel really good and honest, and I have stumbled upon some really amazing people. And actually, the highlight of this course was the meeting of a handful of spectacular women that I am still speaking with, a handful of them from across the globe, spectacular women. And so that has been pretty awesome, like touching in and listening and feeling all these different perspectives and people that have gathered information from these different perspectives with their different areas of expertise in order to try to triangulate what's going on, where are we going, you know, how are we to best navigate this all important shift in human consciousness and in life on the planet. So he was one that I had followed, and I really liked him. He was highly charismatic. His interviewing was top notch, especially early on. He brought on the widest variety of people, I thought, and he was just an excellent interviewer. I really liked him. And so I was definitely drawn just because I was drawn to his energy. I really thought he felt trustworthy. I thought he was I really thought he was authentic as you can gather from anybody that is on camera, right? And appealing to, in his case, tens of thousands of people. And so that is, you know, that was high on the list. But then what really sealed the deal was I was in meditation in, like I said, right around when this podcast episode was done. And thoughts of this guy, along with a woman named Mel Kay and Roseanne Barr, came to my mind. And it wasn't too wild as to why. Okay, now let me digress a second. A big part of my unique company and the work is literally, I have built my life around synchronicities and as much as I can to the power of the now moment and constantly being open, very dynamic, lots of room to take in synchronicities and unplanned. That's where the real magic is. So really, I have like structured my whole life over 9 years to have as loose a structure as possible and to have wide open time and availability for synchronicities and for the unplanned, while following a very clear vision that has not altered in 9 years. That vision has been the thing that is pulling me. And I would say it's the one vision, it's the oneness. I would say it's a vision that it's a frequency that we all have, and we're all connected to it through our heart energy. But that has been my guide, and that I have not faltered from. And so I'm constantly looking for how to best use my energy to serve that vision of oneness, of true oneness, of cooperation, abundance, and love. and oneness, and understanding that helping somebody else is helping myself and that there is no separation. So at that moment, I was contemplating whether or not to accept. Ironman wanted me bad for the 2 world championship events. Ironman is a global triathlon company that was born in Hawaii 42 years ago now. It is a long distance endurance event, including swimming, biking, and running. It's global. And for 6 years, I had been a contractor traveling the continental US, and I had been to Hawaii 3 times to work their biggest event of the year, the World Championship for the full distance, the 140-mile race. It's been a while since I've worked one, the 140-mile race. And after 2020 had essentially been canceled, I was reticent to go back because in the beginning, they were forcing us to wear masks outside, and I wasn't having anything to do with it. And I loved my work at Ironman. Like, I really did. I had criticisms of the business aspect, as I always do, because I don't have a lot of space for when it's the dollar over all else, mostly at the expense of humanity. So I had criticisms of it, but by far, I was the best version of myself that I had yet been able to attract in the work world. Okay, still wasn't attracting me having the ability and the time to contribute my spiritual and emotional skill sets, but from a mental and a physical capacity, and the people I worked with, I loved Ironman, but I was not having the mask. No way was I wearing a mask outside. Not with the knowledge that I had gained, the scientists that I had listened to, the researchers and doctors that I had listened to. There was no way. I couldn't do it. I couldn't compromise. And early into 2021, they said, can't we just get you for 2 events? Can we just get you for the World Championship in St. George, Utah, which I had never been to, and I so wanted to go. I was like, it's so beautiful there. And the World Championship, which they thought at that time was still going to be in Hawaii. So I was very much evaluating whether or not to do this, even though I was pretty darn certain the answer still had to be no, because they weren't able to guarantee me what stipulations, if any, for all this nonsense was going to be instilled, and I wasn't having any of it. Okay, there was no way. I knew what was resonating as truth and what was resonating as complete horseshit, and there was no way I was kowtowing to it. There was no way. So, but I was still trying to see if there was a circumstance under which I would have accepted going to that event, particularly the one in Hawaii. And so in meditation one day, Mark, Mel K, and Roseanne Barr come to mind. And why did this happen? Because I had learned that Roseanne Barr lived in Hawaii. Mark knew Mel K, and I really liked this Mel K woman as well. And Mel K knew Roseanne. And here I am, I'm always about trying to find the biggest ripple effect that we can have. And here's the first sort of bullshit like tester for me on who really is able to live what it means going forward in the higher dimensional living, beyond the 3rd dimension, beyond the ego, beyond the hierarchy, beyond the false ways of the hierarchies, the false hierarchies of, you know, fill in the blank, whether you're talking about the hierarchies of money, whether you're talking about the hierarchies within just these hierarchies of people at the top and not being able to you're not equal. There's no equality within those hierarchies. And one of my many hypotheses is that we drastically have underestimated the effect on the psychology of us as being part of those hierarchies, especially the people at the top of those hierarchies, because very rarely are they called out for anything. And this will come to be a huge energy aspect of the experience in this course. Huge, cannot be overstated how big a deal this is and was, and why it's such a powerful microcosm of the macrocosm. And again, why I'm doing my best to try to share this very personal experience, but understanding that I know I'm not the only one to whom I'm speaking to about trying to trying to understand, give words to, and aid us all into shifting into a very different world and a very different reality where, among other things, we really are treating one another as equals. Different, but equal, and not these false hierarchies. And here was my first bullshit detector, if we really are ready to believe that we all are equal in terms of what we could be bringing to the table, especially in the spiritual realm, because the spiritual realm, by definition, is not material based. And it's a very hard thing to prove your spirituality if you're not dancing in the materialism of it, in the material aspect of it. Because most of the most enlightened people I've met do not have YouTube channels, huge followings, anything like that. They're actually they're the most quiet, unknown people. And I'm speaking of 3 in particular elders in my life here in Sarasota who are without doubt all like absolutely extremely evolved spiritual beings. And they don't, do you have space, all you people with your 50,000 followers? And, do you have space to consider how do you even see those people? How to even recognize their greatness when they live as humbly and as quietly as they do? Or are you trying to force them to play the 3D game rather than vice versa? Rather than believe it's not about bigger is better, but it's actually about, and I'm kind of digressing here, but it might seem weird that I thought that I could have a conversation with any of these 3 people. Now, I would say that was a premonition that I knew I was going to cross. I didn't know at the time, but clearly it was a premonition that I knew I was going to cross Mark's path a lot more directly. But the reason that I felt compelled, I know, to join the class is because I knew I was then going to be much closer to him, and I might have a chance to have him potentially ask Mel, to ask Roseanne, to potentially connect me. And why would I think this? Because Iron Man was born in Hawaii. She lives on the Big Island. She is of the spiritual game as well. And they're all talking about how this is a war, how we need to wake up the masses, how we need to start doing things differently. And if that's the case, what my mind went to was, oh my God, let's have an event. Let's have just a speaking event where we just use Iron Man to market it, right? Throw them a percentage. Iron Man's easy. All they want is their cut of something, right? Like, it's not a hard sell in the business world. You throw them money and you justify it. And if you make it not cost them anything, it's almost I just use Roseanne's name, use Iron Man's influence and all the people they bring to that island to potentially have an event that can serve the people of that island and to help. And my thought was to sort of even out the equation of what I had witnessed there in 3 years as part of the Iron Man circuit, meaning they kind of blow through with their big business. And I feel like that the island, I don't feel like that was an equal. Like, I feel like there was so much more that could have been left behind in the wake of this big, corporate event that comes to this very spiritual island and to a traditional community. And Roseanne's all about helping children. So it sounds crazy, but it also would have served to potentially give me credibility in my world to help get my projects off the ground. Now, I'm not a handout person. I never have been. Never have I been that person that wants to be handed anything. And I know that in the 3rd dimension, we still got to play that game of kind of proving ourselves and kind of showing that you are an equal, and kind of, so I was mixed into all these energies, right? Because I knew how crazy it sounded. How is this little nobody who the hell, why would we ask Roseanne to connect to her? But I was just saying, just connect and ask if she knows of Ironman and if she'd be interested in doing an event that tries to raise money for kids. And that was my thought. And as a result, it was going to, I could see how it was going to have an effect just within the huge employee base that I was connected to within this worldwide company that had a presence on the globe. So I don't know if I'm probably not doing a good job at this, but it was like, it was all like how to help serve this spiritual vision to wake more people up through a company that was already established worldwide at the core of where it was born, with somebody like Roseanne, with her popularity and fame and still the name that she could draw. That's what I was thinking. And this came to me in a meditation months and months before the course. Then the course gets advertised, and I know that that was one of the primary reasons I joined. I know it because I definitely didn't feel at that time, I didn't have any overt feelings that there was anything I could gain from an online marketing course, because I was trying to use as little as possible of anything, any approach, any process, any method of the 3D aspect of things. And so I know it was more to get closer, an opportunity to get closer to Mark. And I had started emailing him multiple times regarding back when I did that video. And I emailed him a couple times, didn't get a response. Not too surprising. I knew he had a lot of followers, so I wasn't too surprised. But then everything changed when I started this course. And now, instead of being one of 25,000 people watching one of his videos, now I was one of 150 people who was about to experience him in a different environment, and arguably to experience, or at least to have a chance to witness, who he was in action. And that is when everything began to change. And I will pick up tomorrow with the rest. I know this one wasn't very particularly good or interesting, but like I said, I needed to capture a video because I got to keep the flow going, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. So, story continues tomorrow.